Meghan Markle has finally reached out to her father, Thomas Markle, who is fighting for his life.
And do something and wait 30 days to get a response from Meghan.
Every day I share a new video exploring the latest stories surrounding Meghan Markle and the royal family. If you enjoy following this ongoing saga, feel free to subscribe, like, or leave a comment. It truly means a lot. Thank you for watching. Now let's get into today's story. What if the woman the whole world watched glide down that royal aisle was keeping something deeply personal hidden the entire time?
According to Meghan, she was very close to her father when they were growing up. Her parents divorced when she was very young.
Something so serious that people close to her stayed quiet for years, just to keep it locked away. That's the claim blowing up right now, sparking intense chatter and making people everywhere start asking questions. Thomas Markle, Meghan's estranged father, says he knows the truth behind a secret that's been buried for a long time. After years of feeling shut out, laughed at and ignored, the 80-year-old says he's finally ready to speak out and be heard.
Seriously unwell father, Thomas Markle Sr., who's 81 years of age, fighting for his life in hospital.
According to him, nothing is holding him back anymore, and what he's revealing now could completely shift how people look at this story. What makes this even more shocking is the way it all came out. Thomas Markle didn't call a flashy press conference. He didn't run to tabloids or post dramatic warnings online. Instead, he calmly sat in front of a camera and started talking, and what he said made people stop and really pay attention. He claims Meghan had a hysterectomy at 19 years old. Let that sink in for a moment, and remember, this isn't just some random voice online chasing attention. This is the man who paid for her education, covered her acting classes, and funded her very first professional headshots. He was the dad driving her to auditions, waiting patiently and supporting her dreams from day one, believing she could actually make it big. Thomas Markle says he was there for every early chapter of Meghan's life, from school days to those first big steps into acting. He claims he showed up every time it mattered, and according to him, he's been holding on to a deeply personal secret for over 20 years. Not because he wanted to, but because she asked him to keep it private back then. He says the trust between them was real and solid. At that time, he wasn't part of headlines or public drama. He was just her dad, supporting her dreams behind the scenes. But as Meghan's fame started to rise, Thomas says things slowly began to shift. Not all at once, bit by bit.
Yeah, and so, in a way, and she's completely rewritten him out of history. Now, we know around the world...
Calls became less frequent. Birthdays passed with no message, and when they did speak, he says something felt off, colder, more distant, almost like talking to a stranger instead of family. Then came the silence. No clear reason, no explanation, just space that kept growing wider. Thomas says his name slowly disappeared from interviews and public stories about Meghan's past. He was being erased piece by piece. For years, he stayed quiet. He watched from a distance as her life grew bigger. Royal titles, major deals, global attention. And whenever people asked about her, he says he kept it respectful and held back even when it wasn't easy. But now, things feel different for him. At 80 years old, after serious health scares and long periods of silence, he says he spent years watching grandchildren he hasn't met grow up from far away. At one point, he even sent a letter from a hospital bed hoping for some kind of reply, but according to him, nothing ever came. At some point, Thomas Markle says the reason to stay quiet just faded away. He insists this isn't about money, fame, or tearing anything down. According to him, this is about something he's carried for decades, something he believes shouldn't stay hidden forever. In his own words, what he's been holding on to feels too heavy to keep buried. And he says the story goes much deeper than just one personal detail. Now go back to May 2018, just days before that massive royal wedding when the whole world was locked in and watching every move.
Not my doing. That's all her doing. And I'm going to let that be. Because I'm better.
At that moment, Thomas was lying in a hospital bed in Mexico, still recovering and feeling weak, trying to get his strength back. Then out of nowhere, his phone rang. He says it was Meghan calling. You'd expect a moment like that to feel emotional, maybe even comforting. A daughter checking on her father, saying something like, "I love you, Dad," or at least asking how he's doing. But Thomas says that's not how it went at all. According to him, the call felt rushed from the very beginning. No questions about his health. No real conversation. just a sense of urgency, like there was something specific that needed to be handled right away. Then came the part that truly caught him off guard. Thomas claims she asked him to destroy every medical document connected to her early adult years. Not store them, not keep them safe, completely destroy them. And the way he describes it, it didn't sound normal to him. He says her tone felt different than anything he had ever heard before. Thomas says the voice on that call felt flat, cold, almost rehearsed, like every word had been planned ahead of time before she even picked up the phone. According to him, she told him that no one ever needs to know what happened in that hospital. That line stayed with him. Up until then, Thomas says he had been trying to justify the growing distance between them. He told himself the silence was probably due to the pressure of the royal engagement, the non-stop media attention, and the intense spotlight on everyone connected to her. He wanted to believe it wasn't personal, but hearing those words, delivered without warmth, without emotion, shifted everything for him. In that moment, he says it stopped feeling like this was just about privacy. Instead, it felt like something else entirely. Like the real goal was to make sure the story disappeared for good. Then the call ended in a way he says he never saw coming. According to Thomas, the final words were, "Don't contact me again. If you care about me, you won't. No goodbye, no, I love you." Just silence right after that. He says he sat there on the edge of the hospital bed, phone still in his hand, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of what just happened. Was she scared? Was someone else influencing the conversation? He says he still doesn't have those answers.
As the father, the man who raised her solo, when her mum ditched her during her teenage years.
After that moment, everything went completely quiet. No messages, no invitation to the wedding. Just distance that kept growing wider and colder. Weeks later, something unexpected showed up. A young cream-colored envelope arrived at his home. Thomas says he recognized the handwriting instantly. Neat, careful, and unmistakably Meghan's. There was no return address, only a Los Angeles postmark. He says he stood outside on his patio, rain falling, a dim light flickering above him, just holding the envelope and turning it over in his hands. And even before opening it, he had a strange feeling, like whatever was inside could change everything. So he didn't rush. He poured himself a drink, sat down, took a breath, and slowly opened it. Inside were 7 full pages, every single line written carefully. No crossed-out words, no messy edits, just clean, deliberate handwriting from start to finish. But Thomas says the letter didn't feel personal at all. To him, it read more like a carefully prepared statement, something written with time, thought, and control behind every single word. And the first thing that hit him wasn't even the message. It was how it started. According to Thomas, she never called him Dad. Not once. There wasn't even a Dear Thomas. Just his name, plain and distant, like she was writing to someone she barely knew. Then came another moment that made him stop. In the letter, Thomas says she accused him of seeking attention through media stories and failing to protect her privacy. And then came a line, the one he says really stood out and caught his full attention. She wrote that he was holding on to things that no longer belonged to him. Thomas says he read that line 3 times, trying to figure out exactly what she meant. But the more he kept reading, the clearer the message became to him. According to his account, she wrote, "You know which documents I'm referring to. You know what was said in those years. I'm asking you for the last time, destroy them, shred them, burn them if you have to. Don't leave them for someone else to find." Thomas says that moment hit different. To him, it didn't sound like a simple request for privacy. It felt firm, direct, and carefully thought out, like every word had a purpose. As he kept going through the letter, he says one line stood out more than anything else on those 7 pages. According to Thomas, it hit harder than the rest. There are consequences to holding on to what doesn't belong to you anymore.
Thomas has gone into intensive care after being rushed to hospital for emergency surgery.
He says the message felt like a warning, not loud, not aggressive, but clear enough that it stayed with him. And the ending didn't soften anything either. No warmth, no friendly closing, no love from Meg, nothing like that. Instead, the final line simply read, "I am moving forward now. This is the last time I will reach out." Thomas says he sat there quietly, the pages spread across his lap, while rain kept falling outside. He didn't react with anger. He didn't break down. What he felt was heavier than that, something that stayed with him. When he finally stood up, he didn't grab a lighter or a shredder. Instead, he placed every single page into a fireproof box, locked it, and hid it somewhere secure. He says this was never about revenge. To him, those papers represented a part of her story that couldn't just be erased or rewritten. And to understand why those documents mattered so much, Thomas says you have to go back years earlier, to the summer of 2000. At the time, Meghan was 19, back home in California during a break from Northwestern. According to Thomas, something didn't feel right. He says she hadn't been acting like herself for a while. He remembers her dealing with strong fatigue and painful cramping that just wouldn't go away. At first, they thought it might be stress from school or being away from home. But the discomfort didn't stop. Eventually, doctors started mentioning the possibility of something more serious. Thomas says that entire period felt tense, and Meghan seemed very anxious throughout it. According to him, she wanted everything handled quietly, completely private. He says she asked him not to tell Samantha and not to turn it into a big family situation. She just wanted to deal with it and move forward without attention. So he says he respected that and supported her the best way he could. Thomas claims he paid for the procedure himself, straight out of pocket. No insurance, no complicated paper trail, just a father stepping in during a difficult moment to help his daughter. According to him, the clinic was small, discreet, and located in West Hollywood. He describes it as the kind of place where privacy came first. No questions, no attention, nothing extra. He also claims Meghan was checked in under a different name. Instead of a full identity, the paperwork listed her as Patient 1472. No last name, no public link, just a number tied to a file. Thomas says he arrived later to pick her up after everything was done.
She doesn't want me to see them. That's the way it's going to be. I won't.
But when he stepped into the hallway, something immediately caught his attention. Meghan wasn't alone. Standing right next to her was a woman he didn't recognize. Short, dark hair, designer sunglasses, and a calm hand resting on Meghan's shoulder. At first, he thought she might be part of the clinic staff, maybe a nurse or someone working there. But then Meghan looked up and saw him, and he says her reaction threw him off completely. Instead of relief, he claims her expression looked more like panic. No one said a word. According to Thomas, they just moved through the hallway in silence, step by step, like nobody wanted to explain anything in that moment. Weeks later, he says he finally found out who that woman was, and that answer raised even more questions. Someone from Meghan's early acting circle. Thomas says he won't reveal the name publicly, not out of fear, but because, in his words, she's still out there and remembers exactly what happened that day. And this is where the story takes another strange turn. Thomas says that while standing in that hallway, he was fumbling with his phone, trying to call Samantha to give a quick, vague update. In the middle of it, he accidentally tapped the camera button without even realizing it. He claims he didn't notice anything at the time, but days later, while scrolling through his gallery, he found it, a blurry, accidental photo from that exact moment. According to him, the image showed Meghan, the woman standing beside her, and a nurse further down the hallway looking in their direction. The timestamp, he says, matched that exact day at the clinic. Thomas insists he never meant to take the photo, but he kept it anyway. Long before royal headlines, before the global spotlight and all the attention, there was someone else in Meghan's life, Trevor Engelson. Trevor was a young film producer building his career in Hollywood. When they met in the early 2000s, Thomas says the relationship seemed real and steady. Trevor would come by the Markle home, bring wine, watch old movies with the family, and even call Thomas Sir. They stayed together for nearly a decade before finally getting married in 2011. By many accounts, Trevor wasn't just someone passing through, he was a major part of Meghan's life for years. Which is why what happened next feels so unexpected. Just 2 years after the wedding, the marriage suddenly ended. Thomas says there wasn't a loud fight or dramatic scene. No big public fallout. Instead, one morning, Trevor reportedly opened an envelope at his apartment, and inside were both wedding rings. No note, no call, no explanation, just silence. And later, through a mutual friend, Thomas says only one word ever made it back to him: closure. According to Thomas, The story involving Trevor didn't end with that quiet breakup. He says he always believed Trevor knew something about Meghan's medical history, not because she openly told him, but because of something Trevor reportedly discovered early in their relationship. Thomas claims Trevor once came across a medical referral letter connected to Meghan. The detail that stood out:
Father, the Duchess of Sussex has managed to get a letter delivered to his bedside. On December 10th, a spokesperson for the
He says the letter was addressed under a different name and sent to a P.O. box in Beverly Hills. That discovery, according to Thomas, raised questions right away. Instead of confronting Meghan directly, Thomas says Trevor approached him privately, and according to his memory, Trevor kept it simple. He asked one question: "Is Meg okay?" Then he followed it with a line Thomas says he never forgot: "I just want to make sure she's being honest with herself." That moment stuck with him for years. Because later, when Meghan's life exploded into global attention, royal headlines, major interviews, documentaries, media outlets started digging into her past. And Trevor's name quickly moved to the top of their list. Reporters and tabloids, according to Thomas, kept reaching out again and again, hoping Trevor would finally speak. Some of those offers were said to be very tempting. But Trevor never said a word. No interviews, no anonymous leaks, nothing. For years, that silence looked like respect, maybe even loyalty. But Thomas believes it meant something deeper. Then came a moment at Trevor's own wedding years later that raised even more questions. According to people who were there, Trevor became emotional during a toast near the end of the night. He allegedly said, "There are things I'll take to the grave, but tonight isn't about silence. It's about finally breathing again." Witnesses say his voice wasn't steady when he said it. And Thomas believes that moment sounded like someone finally letting go of a secret he had carried for a long time. Samantha, according to Thomas, was the first in the family to sense that something wasn't right that summer. Meghan had suddenly gone completely quiet. No calls, no visits, no contact at all for nearly 3 weeks. At first, it didn't seem unusual. People thought she was just busy, maybe out with friends or taking time to recharge after the school year. But Samantha says this silence felt different, heavier, like something important was being kept out of sight. So she went straight to Thomas and asked what was going on. According to him, he told her Meghan was dealing with something personal and asked her not to push for details. But Samantha didn't let it go. Thomas had once casually mentioned a location, a small private women's clinic on a quiet street. That detail stuck with her. So, out of curiosity, she decided to drive there herself. She describes the place as extremely discreet, with no clear name on the front. When she walked in, she acted like someone asking about a consultation, just blending in at the reception desk. And then, something caught her attention. She says there was a file sitting on the counter with a name she recognized instantly. Not Markle, not Meghan. The file reportedly read M. Grant. That name meant something to Samantha. According to her, it was a nickname Meghan had once used in online chat rooms when they were younger. A small inside joke only the two of them shared.
Or letter of communication with my dad by my sister. So there does still seem to be some type of disagreement about whether this letter...
Samantha says she didn't say a word while she was there. She calmly walked out, got back in her car, drove home, and kept what she saw to herself, at least at first. But that night, she tried calling Thomas. No answer. She called again the next day. And the day after that, finally 4 days later, he called her back. Samantha says he sounded completely drained, and according to her, he kept it short. The only thing he said was, "She's okay, don't bring it up. She doesn't want anyone to know." That one call changed everything. Samantha says that was the moment the family quietly split into two sides. Some chose to protect the secret and keep it buried no matter what. Others, she says, struggled with staying silent and acting like nothing ever happened. Samantha says she was firmly in the second group, the one that couldn't just ignore what happened. A few weeks later, during a small family dinner, she decided to face it head on. She pulled Meghan aside and told her straight up. She knew. She says she mentioned the file at the clinic, putting everything out in the open, and what happened next is something Samantha claims she has never forgotten. According to her, Meghan looked directly at her and calmly said, "Then you also know why I can't afford to be like everyone else." Samantha says the tone wasn't angry. It wasn't defensive. Instead, it felt almost settled, like Meghan had already made a clear decision about the direction of her life. Over the years, there have been plenty of public disagreements and accusations between them. But Samantha says one thing has never changed in her mind. She believes something major happened that summer, and the silence around it wasn't random. According to her, that silence was built carefully, piece by piece, with people choosing what to say and what to keep hidden. And the story connected to that small clinic, she says, is far from quiet. The clinic at the center of these claims was known as La Fuente Women's Wellness Center, a highly private facility that reportedly served well-known clients across Hollywood. For years, actresses, executives, and influential families were said to visit there. Staff members were placed under strict confidentiality rules from the moment they were hired. According to reports, discretion wasn't just a policy. It was the entire foundation of how the clinic operated. Employees were expected to stay silent about everything: who came in, who left, and what happened behind closed doors during appointments. For a long time, the clinic stayed under the radar with little public attention.
Means not to offer him a message of hope, not to pray for his...
But that started to change when journalists began asking questions. In 2024, reporters who tried to visit the location described heavy security. Some say they were stopped at the gate by private guards with tinted windows covering much of the building. There was even a warning sign posted outside, making it clear that uninvited visitors were not welcome. "We're not welcome." That's how one journalist described the situation after trying to dig deeper into the clinic's past. According to reports, one journalist asked about a patient record connected to the early 2000s. They claim staff inside reacted quickly, shutting the conversation down and even threatening to call the police. Another reporter tried a different approach. They sent multiple emails posing as a potential patient and asking about services. But according to their account, no response ever came back, not even an automatic reply. Then in 2025, things took an even stranger turn. The clinic announced what they called a strategic restructure. It wasn't a full shutdown, but a quiet internal shift that raised eyebrows. As part of that change, their patient database was reportedly moved to an offshore server in Switzerland. Records that were once accessible through normal systems suddenly became much harder to trace, almost like they vanished behind another layer of privacy. Thomas says he even tried reaching out to the clinic himself years earlier, hoping to confirm whether his memory of that time was accurate. According to him, he sent a formal request asking about the visit. The reply he claims he received was short, careful, and offered nothing more than a single line. "We cannot confirm nor deny the presence of this individual in our facility at any time." No explanation, no follow-up, just that. But Thomas believes the story goes even deeper. He claims there was a former nurse from the clinic, someone he refers to as Marina, who worked overnight shifts there for about 5 years. Her role focused mostly on post-operative care, handling the quieter, behind-the-scenes side of things. According to Thomas, she later moved away from California completely. In what he describes as a private conversation that was recorded but never released, Marina allegedly said something that stood out. She reportedly said, "Yes, Meghan was here. She was young, scared, and she left with more than just a scar."
Letters, she was phoning hospitals, but we now know that she allegedly will not speak to her.
When asked to explain further, Thomas says she suddenly went quiet and didn't give any more details. He also claims he spoke with her again in 2023. According to him, Marina said she clearly remembered Meghan, describing her as intense, nervous, and withdrawn in a way that stood out to staff working that shift. And then came one more detail that raised even more questions. According to Thomas, Marina said someone came to pick Meghan up that day, someone who wasn't part of the family. According to the story, that person guided her out through a side exit of the clinic. No formal sign-out, no questions, nothing that would leave a clear trail. And when you line everything up, the situation starts to look even more unusual. A clinic that refuses to speak, a nurse who remembers but won't explain further, and records that are now stored on servers in another country. It raises questions that don't go away easily. And here's where things take another turn. Thomas Markle says there's still one part of the story he hasn't revealed yet. At the same time, he makes one thing very clear when he talks about all of this. He says he's not claiming Meghan did anything wrong by having a medical procedure at 19, and he's not saying she owed the public any kind of announcement about something personal. According to him, private medical decisions should stay private. No debate there, but what he says concerns him is something different entirely. In his view, Meghan later built a public image centered around openness, honesty, and vulnerability. And yet, he believes people from her earlier life slowly started disappearing from the picture. Thomas says many of those people weren't pushed away because they did anything wrong. Instead, he believes they were connected to moments from her past that never became part of the public story. Look at the pattern he points to. There's the ex-husband, who, despite major media interest, never spoke publicly about their relationship. There's the half-sister who says she recognized a file at a clinic but spent years being dismissed. Then there's the nurse who reportedly remembered a scared 19-year-old and later chose to stay quiet. And behind all of it, there's the clinic itself. A place that has stayed silent, avoided questions, and kept everything tightly controlled. And eventually those records were moved overseas. Different people, different moments. But somehow they all trace back to the same place, the same city, and the same day that almost no one was ever supposed to talk about. And right in the center of it all is Thomas, the father who says he paid for the procedure, showed up to bring his daughter home, and accidentally captured a photo he never even meant to take. According to him, he held on to everything. The letter, the documents, the memories, and the silence for more than 20 years.
Tragic news coming in. Meghan Markle's father, Thomas Markle, is undergoing leg amputation.
That's a long time to keep something locked away. Thomas says there was a time when he felt like Meghan's biggest supporter, the one helping her chase her dreams and build her future. But over time, he believes that image flipped, and he was slowly painted as the villain in the public version of events. Now, he says he's not looking for reconciliation anymore. That chapter, according to him, closed a long time ago. What he claims he wants now is something much simpler, just for his side of the story to exist somewhere on record. A version that didn't go through a PR team or get shaped into something polished. So the question people keep asking is this: is he bitter? Maybe. But does that automatically mean he's wrong? That's where the real debate begins. Because stories like this don't just disappear. They sit in locked boxes, hidden files, and in the memories of people who were there when everything happened. And sooner or later, pieces start to surface. Thomas Markle now says he's done waiting. In his mind, the time to speak is right now. If this story got you thinking, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with others, and drop your thoughts in the comments below.